Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight. I want to thank the Jefferson Educational Society for giving me this opportunity to speak with you about a very, very timely issue: the challenges facing higher education today. Now, particularly as they apply to those of us who espouse the value of liberal arts. I'd like to start by telling you a story that was related to me by Chris Wheaton. Now, Chris is an intelligence studies professor at Mercyhurst University and a retired foreign area officer with the U.S. Army. Now, he calls his story that he related to me, quote, "The day liberal arts saved my life." It was 1994. Chris had just been sent to the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia by his boss, a one-star general by the name of Michael Hayden. Macedonia had just declared its independence, and the U.S. had deployed a handful of soldiers in isolated outposts up and down the Serb-Macedonian border. They were part of a UN mission to lessen dangerous tensions brewing between the new Macedonian state and Serbia. Chris was the liaison between the U.S. diplomatic mission and the U.S. European Command. To hear Chris tell it, this meant that he had a beat-up old rent-a-car and lots of freedom to go where he thought he needed to go and to see what he thought he needed to see. Now, one day he was driving northeast of Kumanovo. This area had a large concentration of Serbs. These were Serbs who had been cut off from Serbia and from their extended families, who now lived right across the border. Now remember, this was 1994. GPS was still a couple of years away, and Chris was exploring the area the old-fashioned way, with a map. But in reality, he was lost. He was faced with pulling over and asking for directions. His Serbian was good enough to communicate, but his accent would mark him as an American. The locals he spoke with were not happy to see him and demanded to know what he was doing there. One of the locals even made a point of brandishing a gun. So there he was, an American with passable Serbian, running around in civilian clothes in a rental car. He just had to be a spy. He knew that's what they were thinking, and he had to think fast. So he told them the first thing that popped into his head: "I'm here to see the frescoes." Because he had excellent instruction in early Christian and Byzantine art while attending Florida State University for his master's degree, he knew that was actually a pretty safe answer anywhere in the Balkans. You were never too far away from a stunningly beautiful Byzantine-era church decorated with frescoes and mosaics from the 1100s. Or even earlier. Now the locals escorted Chris to a nearby church, and they watched with suspicion as he and the local priest became involved in a discussion about the Passion cycle, which was depicted on the church walls. The same pictures Chris had seen repeatedly in his art history class. Slowly but slowly, the nervous Serb townsfolk began to drift away. Now, Chris tells me he'll never know for sure if that art class saved his life, but it proved a very, very important point. Intelligence is the most interdisciplinary of all the disciplines. Intelligence analysts are routinely expected to understand data from diverse fields such as economics, politics, cultural anthropology, military affairs, history, public health, the natural sciences, and yes, art. A good liberal arts education provides the kind of depth and breadth that intelligence analysts need. Now, when Bob Heibel started the Intelligence Studies program at Mercyhurst University more than 25 years ago, he saw the need for analysts to have a wide range of experiences and knowledge, ranging from language and rhetoric to statistics and computer science. Today, it's easy to see that Bob's vision was absolutely unequivocally correct. As counterintuitive as it may seem to some, the applied discipline of intelligence studies is really most at home in the liberal arts setting. And that's where Mercyhurst has its niche. Now, we are not a liberal arts college today per se. We are a comprehensive college with a strong liberal arts core curriculum that supports our professional programs, intelligence studies just being one of them. No matter what major students choose to study at Mercyhurst, business, criminal justice, sports medicine, they will have numerous experiences in the liberal arts. They will have experience in English, art, and music, history, the natural and social sciences, mathematics, and the world's languages and cultures. Without the experiences learned from a deep study of the liberal arts, effectively dealing with real-life situations, whether in one's career or personal life, it is diminished. That's because you wouldn't have developed critical habits of mind without studying the liberal arts. The seemingly simple act of observation, for example, is not a matter of just being there with your eyes open. The ability to see what's there and to see the facts salient to the situation is a learned ability. The ability to analyze a situation, break it down to its constituent parts, is also essential, but it is also a learned ability. The ability to make relevant analogies or comparisons between what you already know and any present situation is likewise a potential lifesaver, but similarly something that has to be learned. In the ongoing debate about the role of higher learning in today's digital economy, some critics question the value of a traditional liberal arts education, especially when compared to the skills learned through the STEM disciplines of science, technology, engineering, and math. In truth, a good education should include soft as well as hard competencies. Technical and business skills can get graduates in the door, but an ability to think critically and communicate effectively can play an equal, if not larger role in achieving success. You don't have to take my word for it. I would like you to listen to the advice of Bill Gullen. He's the CEO of Finch Brands, an advertising firm. Let me tell you the advice he gives to new business students. Young people intrigued by the business world, take heed, he writes. I implore you to have a liberal arts background. I implore you to take functionally driven advertising courses only if you can layer them on top of a well-rounded educational core. Don't take consumer behavior, a business course, until you've completed a few psychology courses. Don't take creative strategy until you've taken enough art, music, literature, and theater to fill your soul. Don't take the history of advertising until you appreciate history in general. He goes on to say that industrial skills can be learned on the job. Cultural literacy and emotional intelligence cannot. In a national survey of business and not-for-profit leaders commissioned by the Association of American Colleges and Universities, employers overwhelmingly endorsed broad learning and cross-cutting skills as the best preparation for long-term career success. When hiring recent graduates, employers placed the greatest priority on a demonstrated proficiency in skills and knowledge that cut across all majors. Of 17 outcome areas tested, written and oral communication, teamwork skills, ethical decision-making, critical thinking, and the ability to apply knowledge in real-world settings were the most highly valued by all employers. Since we generally associate these kind of competencies with the liberal arts, one would think that that would be a banner message for all liberal arts schools. And yet, not so much. The more commonly held theme can be found in this headline from the New York Times: a rising call to promote STEM education and cut liberal arts funding, end quote. In his book, In Defense of a Liberal Education, CNN host Fareed Zakaria noted that several U.S. governors have vowed not to spend taxpayer money subsidizing the liberal arts. Even President Obama seemed aligned with that mindset when he told a group at a General Electric plant in 2014, and I quote, "I promise you, folks can make a lot more potentially with skilled manufacturing or the trades than they might with an art history degree," end quote. But in his book, Zakaria counters that American manufacturing jobs continue to be automated or outsourced, and specific vocational knowledge is often very outdated within a few years. He notes that engineering is a great profession, made greater by the value-added skills of creativity, lateral thinking, communication, the ability to approach problems from many perspectives, and to combine various approaches to find innovative solutions. Precisely the hallmarks of a liberal arts education. We keep this top of mind at Mercyhurst, where we know the top majors of today likely won't be the top majors 5 years from now. Our goal is to remain ever nimble, not only in adapting to these changes, but, when possible, getting out ahead of them so we can better prepare our students for the global marketplace. From my personal standpoint, it appears that a sense of balance is what's lacking in this debate. Manhattanville College Provost Lisa Doling put it well when she said, and I quote, "Among the many false dichotomies fostered by the continuing debate surrounding higher education, one that I find especially disconcerting is that which pits the professional against the personal. While it is expressed in a variety of ways, it boils down to this: either you believe the purpose of going to college is to be able to secure a job, or you think there's something more intrinsically valuable to be gained from the years spent earning a degree." Now, my question is, when did these two become mutually exclusive? At Mercyhurst University, they are not. As a comprehensive college with a blend of professional and liberal arts programs, we maintain a balanced approach. That is what we communicate to prospective students and their parents, and that is what we deliver once they pass through our gates. And yes, we want our students to get jobs shortly after completing their educations. But if our students are to be prepared for leading meaningful lives in the 21st century, they must leave Mercyhurst with something more nuanced, but ultimately more valuable than the skills of a particular major. Their ability to affect change will depend upon the capacity to think analytically and creatively, to evaluate social problems from a myriad of perspectives, and to understand how to effectively traverse an increasingly global and technological world. And that is our challenge: to enlighten beyond the syllabus, to instill the underlying frame of intellectual curiosity, integrity, and creative thought. Colleges and universities have always been challenged by uncertainties. In the past, most issues were unique to the specific institution. One institution might have a problem with accreditation, while another might suffer an enrollment decline. Today, however, widespread challenges on a national scale are affecting all of higher education. If you hadn't realized the scope of these challenges before, you got an awakening when Virginia's legendary Sweetbriar College announced it was closing a year ago. Despite having a national brand and reputation, a respectable endowment, and passionate alumni, the all-women's school felt compelled to take the nuclear option. As for the reasons why, trustees cited an endowment made up of mostly restricted funds, declining enrollment, higher tuition discount rates, and years of dipping into the unrestricted endowment to cover operating costs. Private institutions commonly reduce their tuition to offer students a discount from the sticker price in an effort to entice them to enroll. A report from the National Association of College and University Business Officers reveals that tuition discount rates are at an all-time high, and many institutions are using the strategy to a point where some analysts believe it is not sustainable. Other problems cited by Sweetbriar included deferred maintenance, a rural setting, and diminishing public interest in a liberal education and especially single-sex education. In the last 30 years, there's been a dramatic reduction in the number of colleges that meet the Carnegie Foundation for Advancement of Teaching's definition of a liberal arts college. I'm sure many of you in this room are aware of colleges. Just think about it. All of you are aware of colleges like Sweetbriar that are facing the same dire circumstances to one degree or another. They may not find closure a necessity, but there have been mergers, and some have sought survival by changing their very identity and teaching more vocations than critical thinking. Now, in the end, Sweetbriar's stout-hearted alumni mobilized to save their beloved alma mater and keep it open. But we in this room can only wonder, for how long? Sweetbriar's near demise poses a cautionary tale for many colleges, dozens upon dozens of which are vulnerable today, and not just because of their emphasis on the liberal arts. The outside causes of recent troubles are numerous. Among them are a decline in high school graduates and changing demographics, affordability and worries about student loan debt, demands, ever-increasing demands from accrediting bodies, a downturn in government funding, the proliferation of online education, competition from for-profit colleges, and finally, government regulations. This applies to all colleges and universities. Now, private colleges have their own unique challenges. Small endowments mean that they depend upon enrollment to bring in tuition dollars. At most private colleges, enrollment-based revenue, which means tuition, room and board, constitutes 85 to 90% of the total revenue garnered by those institutions. 85 to 90%. Private colleges have smaller class sizes, so they can't subsidize operations with large lectures. Many private colleges are in rural areas with shrinking populations, and many are perceived as being absolutely unaffordable. Then, of course, colleges in Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania have a competitive environment like none other. In case you didn't know it, the largest number of colleges and universities in the United States are situated in this tri-state area. 884 to be exact. 884. Add to that the fact that the overall enrollment for traditional undergraduates has grown at a very slow pace. Areas in the south and southwest have seen reasonable growth, while areas in the northeast have seen little to no growth whatsoever. Research tells us there will not be a return to growth for college-bound high school seniors until the year 2022. And when that resurgence comes, institutions will be serving a demographically different audience that will be more diverse and in greater need of financial assistance. Each class going forward will be more racially, ethnically, and socioeconomically diverse and include more first-generation students than the last. Now, on top of all this, institutions are battling for international students. At Mercyhurst alone, we have students from more than 50 different countries. These demographic factors have created a new basis of competitions as institutions fight tooth and nail for their market share. Again, the key here is to be nimble. Institutions that rely on traditional undergrads for a great deal of their revenue must, absolutely must, also examine graduate and non-traditional enrollments as part of an overall, all-encompassing enrollment strategy. Schools must also remain vigilant about changing market conditions and take steps to head off problems or identify opportunities. Bad things happen when we take our eye off the ball. Now, one thing I've stressed as part of my presidency at Mercyhurst is that higher education leaders can no longer follow a path of misguided optimism. You can no longer follow one's gut or intuition. The days of informal structures and casual leadership are gone. Ours must be a thoughtful, strategic business model rooted in preparedness, research-based problem-solving, analysis, and best practice. It has been said that a modern university has become like a city-state in its scope and complexity. And judging from the number and range of issues that have crossed my desk since I joined Mercyhurst 1 year ago today, I would say that is a very good comparison. At Mercyhurst, we put a motto in place that demands institutional effectiveness at all levels. In particular, the effective use of data to inform decisions, planning, and improvement. Now let's talk a little about that big thing we call data. We now have an unprecedented amount of data available to us in higher education. We have enrollment stats, student data, web analytics, and alumni data. The blessing here is that if we are able to capture that data, our analytical capability can help us answer specific questions, like how to optimize financial aid, what factors are barriers to student retention, and how best to engage our alumni. On the flip side, the volume of data is so vast that it requires real expertise to manage it effectively. If you don't have the appropriate tools, focus, and people to interpret the information, you will be hard-pressed to make data-driven decisions, and you will miss the opportunity to find riches in the gold mine you're sitting on. I should tell you, as Dr. Garvey pointed out, we are reaping the benefits of becoming more astute at data analysis at Mercyhurst. We used it to successfully bring in a record-setting freshman class this year, the largest in the history of Mercyhurst University. And we bucked all national trends. Thank you, Joe Howard. We are also teaching big data as part of our Intelligence Studies program. Last year, we launched a Master's in Data Science. The degree was designed to meet a gap in higher education and to enhance our competitive edge among liberal arts institutions. It's also part of Mercyhurst's effort to create interdisciplinary initiatives in emerging 21st century science and technology fields. A data science skill set combined with Mercyhurst's traditional strengths in applied intelligence, public health, and business, augmented by a solid foundation in the liberal arts, provide attractive employment opportunities for students. There are some things that we as higher ed institutions can control. I think it is very important to develop a distinct niche, especially in a marketplace defined by intense competition and disruption. We need to break out of the box. We need to resist the temptation to be all things to all people in the lure of, we're pretty good at everything we do. That doesn't work. We must continually ask ourselves, what makes us different? What makes us better than our peers? Then there are things we simply can't control, despite financial challenges inherent in them. One contemporary issue that we are grappling with now is a recent change in overtime compensation under the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. That change, which takes the exemption salary level, those who need to be paid overtime, from $23,000 per year to $47,000 a year, creates significant challenges for our universities and other higher education institutions across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Employers must follow both state and federal rules related to overtime pay, and there are significant points of divergence. The new regulations, which become effective this December, will result in tough decisions having to be made at many colleges and universities. Institutions are going to be forced to place a large number of employees, particularly admission staff, academic counselors, and certain other support personnel who are really in loco parentis on non-exempt status. These professionals, some with master's degrees, will now be relegated to punching a time clock. And in some cases, this will lead to a reduction in services because we simply don't have the resources to pay overtime in such a large quantity. Another outside factor that has come to the fore in recent years is the growing scrutiny of accreditation. The goal is admirable: to ensure that institutions of higher education meet acceptable levels of quality. The problem is in the constantly changing definition of what is an acceptable level of quality. Colleges and universities face the challenge of how to dedicate valuable resources of time, energy, and funds to successfully meet today's accreditation demands. And then, there are political influences. And in this area, I have very, very grave concerns. Let me explain. This year's presidential campaign floated a couple of proposals advocating tuition-free enrollment at state universities. Hillary Clinton's answer is in her, quote, New College Compact that would cover tuition for students from families making up to $125,000 at public institutions. Higher education experts say this could be the death knell for private education in the United States. The migration of students to public colleges and universities would kill off weaker, poorly endowed private schools. And if the federal government eliminates grants and loans for students choosing to attend private schools, this would further accelerate their decline. But hey, this sounds great for the publics, right? No, I think not. It is unlikely that our public institutions have the capacity to meet this type of demand. They already enroll more than 3/4 of the nation's undergrads. You also have to wonder whether the government will increase funding to match the demand, or will the state system be forced to educate more students with less resources? We could be facing the erosion of quality public education as well. We owe the young men and women of this country better. But let's expand that lens, if you will. Colleges and universities are economic engines. What would happen to Erie if Mercyhurst and Gannon were gone? Remember, we're both among the top 20 employers in the city of Erie. Students who study here, not to mention parents and alumni who visit here, shop at our stores, eat at our restaurants, sleep in our hotels, buy our gasoline, all of that would go away. The independent colleges and universities in nearly 100 communities across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania create valuable jobs, partnerships, and business opportunities. Their total economic impact is nearly $18 billion. Can Pennsylvania, can Erie afford to take that kind of hit? Besides the financial impact, think of the athletic, intellectual, and cultural resources that Mercyhurst and Gannon offer our community. We are bright stars in the quality of life proposition that we hold dear here in Erie. If private colleges close, towns suffer. There is no getting around that reality. I think we have to rethink free college. If there's anything I believe most of us here tonight have learned in life, nothing in life is truly free. But moving on, I think one of the most unexpected challenges facing higher education today is the growing public perception about the long-term investment value of a college degree. Think about it. Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Sir Richard Branson. These are some of the world's most illustrious college dropouts. Obviously, they didn't need college to be successful. Historically, though, most people have tended to believe that a college degree is the key for a good career. But that perception has a growing base of detractors. With rising tuition costs and a generation of graduates burdened by debt, the return on investments on a college degree is shrinking. Now, there are no easy answers. Still, I think there are solutions to this problem, including a more robust look at career preparation during a student's college years. In other words, how do we build a model that brings together education and career preparation for students and families sacrificing to achieve a college degree? At Mercyhurst, we foresaw the trend years ago and got out ahead of it, building into every major a capstone or experiential learning component. Students who study political science, for example, learn theory in the classroom, but they also have a bird's eye view into the world of politics through Mercyhurst Center for Applied Politics, which offers all kinds of engagement activities, not the least of which is our public opinion polling center, where our students are trained to conduct real polls. Our forensic anthropology students, they go to crime scenes with professors and gain genuine experience in the field. Experience that no classwork or mock exercise could ever replicate. We make all of this explicit in our mission and our marketing, but clearly higher education as a whole needs to do a better job of integrating career education with the academic experience. By far, one of the biggest advantages in going to college is that you'll be qualified for more high-paying jobs in most fields. That's a fact. While this doesn't always hold true, college grads do on average make a lot more money than workers who just have a high school diploma. In fact, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the annual salary average differences between educational levels is staggering, absolutely staggering. High school dropouts average $18,700. High school graduates, $27,900. College graduates, those with bachelor's degrees, $51,000. Advanced degree holders, $74,600. That means over the course of working 40 years, someone with a high school diploma will make $1.1 million, while someone with a bachelor's degree will make $2,048,000. That's nearly $1 million more over your lifetime if you have a college degree. Another challenge that I see facing higher education is technology. At Mercyhurst alone, this past year, we registered 15,000 mobile devices on our campus. 15,000. We've just done a $3 million renovation of our cafeteria that, of course, must include Wi-Fi, counter seating equipped with power and data backsplashes and HD TV. This is all very expensive, but it is expected. Clearly, schools that don't stay on the technology learning curve could find themselves at a competitive disadvantage that will be very, very difficult to recover from. This is especially true of liberal arts colleges that have been able to sustain their traditional models throughout the first wave of technology-driven innovation in higher ed. During the past 15 years, the use of online instruction for adult students has been clearly demonstrated, and now we're seeing an integration of online study as a standard part of the undergraduate experience. This poses a big question for the traditional residential campus, and I don't think we know just how it's all going to turn out. Clearly, there will be winners and there will be losers in this brave new world. But just as I've repeatedly said, we have to be nimble. We also have to be innovative to remain viable. So online learning will have to be a part of our long-term strategy at Mercyhurst. So will the challenge of rocketing student debt. You've heard the statistics. Americans owe nearly $1.3 trillion in student loan debt. The average class of 2016 graduate has $37,000 in student loan debt. $37,000. This is up 6% from just last year. This year, Mercyhurst took a step to address this higher education and economic crisis by providing a free online resource that makes it simpler for students to take control of their personal finances and their student loans. We are the first school in Northwest Pennsylvania to partner with the not-for-profit organization American Student Assistance to provide this guidance tool to our estimated 4,000 students and our 16,000 alumni. This program teaches them how to borrow less for college, borrow the right types of loans, make repayments less stressful, and build money knowledge. It includes an online community where members can talk with experts and peers about student debt, financial aid, and managing personal finances. There are even counselors who work directly with students and alumni to help negotiate them with their loan service providers. Now, as we work our way through many of the challenges and trends I've spoken about today, I believe strongly that many traditional age college students still want the classic college experience with the coming of age interaction with peers and professors that has been the heart of higher education for generations. I firmly believe that students want to hear the Westminster chimes ringing out the hours as they navigate our beautiful campus, that they want to find a secluded corner in the library to curl up with coffee and a computer, that they want to work alongside a gifted professor in his or her research. They want to hang out with friends in the cafeteria. They want to go to a roommate's theater debut or cheer on their favorite athletic team. So we will continue to create all of these moments and cherish all of these memories. I'd like to conclude my remarks today with another little story. This one is about a recent graduate of ours, Kristen Hudak. Now, Kristen is the Public Relations Director for the Baltimore Orioles. While at Mercyhurst, she was a political science major. I'm told that she was actually somewhat shy. She went on to graduate school at Catholic University. I might note that she got a perfect score on the writing component of the GRE. Along the way, Kristen developed an interest in baseball, and she started blogging about the sport. She got noticed. That led her to a job at ESPN and then on to the Orioles. During last year's summer riots in Baltimore, it was our Kristen who handled the barrage of media briefings on how the Orioles were going to manage the safety of the baseball fans attending the games at Camden Yards. Now, who would have thought a political science major would end up doing PR for the Baltimore Orioles in Major League Baseball? I have little doubt that her confidence, her ability to adapt, to excel, to parlay writing skills into a career, and to emerge as a leader goes to her Mercyhurst experience and to the liberal arts core curriculum that enabled her to grow intellectually and to think and write critically and creatively. This, to me, is the cornerstone of a liberal arts education. The ability to invent and reinvent yourself as times change. Still, as more pressure is placed on institutions to quantify success, this often becomes a challenge for liberal arts schools. As Einstein was once thought to have said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. One of the most enduring benefits of liberal education is that it broadens us. When we absorb great literature, we come face to face with ideas, experiences, and emotions that we might never otherwise encounter in our lifetime. Writes Fareed Zakaria in his latest book. When we read history, we encounter people from a different age and learn from their triumphs and travails. When we listen to great music, we're moved in ways that reason cannot comprehend. This may not help make a living, but it will help make a life. A liberal education gives us a greater capacity to be good workers, but it also gives us the capacity to be good partners, friends, parents, and citizens. I'd say we could all use a little bit more of liberal education. I want to thank you for coming tonight, and as we say at Mercyhurst University, Carpe Diem.
Thank you, President Victor, for the very informative and excellent presentation. Friendly reminder, we are into the Q&A session of tonight's presentation. Again, the Jefferson House rules, we simply ask that you raise your hand. We'll come to you with a microphone so that everyone here can hear your question.
Don't be shy.
I'm Dean Baldwin. I taught English at Barron College for 37 years, so I'm on your side.
Thank you.
But your quote from Bill Gullin is the kind of quote I've been hearing for 40 years in higher education. And the sad thing is that while the CEOs at the top may say those nice things, the people at the bottom who are doing the hiring don't hire those people. Can you comment on that?
Yes, it is true that a lot will look for the hard skills, the STEM skills, if you will, and or the business skills. But I believe that the ultimate success once the individuals attain the job is those who have the liberal arts background will excel at the job. And that's what we hear from the CEOs, is that those are the ones who rise to the top. I was talking with Ferky earlier, and he mentioned that he has friends who've attended public institutions, and many of them don't know who great historical figures are. They don't know who Churchill is. They don't know who even Napoleon was. And these are not simply topics for party talk. These are ways to explore. And I think a liberal arts education, it may not save your life, but it certainly will give you the skill set to navigate any business situation.
First, I want to say thank you to Michael for that very interesting information he just put out. And I want to do what I call put a stamp of approval on what he said. In 1950, I went to Mercyhurst's rival, Gannon. I was a young man, 22 years old, just out of the Army, and was also, like Einstein and some of those others, these famous gentlemen up there, the high school dropout. When I went to Gannon, I really was so green because the type of information that he just put out was not available 50 years ago. And I did not understand what college was all about. So that when I took a class called Fine Arts, my question was, why am I taking this course? Why do I need to know about Roman columns, Greek columns, and all these Gothic statues and stuff? Why? Well, fortunately for me, I was blessed with being able to get through college, and I was recalled back into the Army as a second lieutenant. In 1957, I got a set of orders sending me to Tehran, Iran. Okay, fine. I went by way of Frankfurt, Germany, and had a layover in Frankfurt, Germany. So I'm walking around just to see the sights of Germany, and I looked up and I see this church, and it had this beautiful rose window. And I looked up there and I said, my God, that's that church that that professor was talking about. Wow. Then I thought, you don't know very much about that course, because I can tell you, most of the time I was in that course, I was in this position. I left Frankfurt, Germany, traveling through by way of Rome, Istanbul, Turkey, to Tehran. Now I see minarets. I see mosaics. My eyes are popping out of my head because now I'm kicking myself because instead of staying awake, I was asleep. So much of the stuff that I needed to know, I didn't know. As it would happen, I finished my military career, came back to Erie, went back to Gannon the second time to see what I was going to do after my military career. As he pointed out about the young lady being a political science major, winding up with the Baltimore Orioles. I went to the Career Center to find out what I wanted to do after I got my master's degree and finished my assignment, which was on the Gannon ROTC staff. The person in the career said, well, what do you want to be? So I don't know. When I went to college, I wanted business administration because I could go to work with a white shirt on and come back home and the shirt still be white. When I was 15 years old and worked in a foundry, if you went in with a white shirt on, it came out you were black. So he said, well, why don't you become a counselor? No, that's education, that's not my thing. He said, well, let's look at your background and see what you got. So he asked me, so what did you do in the Army? So I told him, because at that time, military men were responsible for the health, welfare, and morale of every man. This is what you hear them talking about, that Captain Khan now. That's why he died, because of that health, welfare, and morale, and that was his job to step out there in front, preserve that for those men. I had done those kind of things, and so he said, well, you've been counseling. What do you mean I've been counseling? Because leaders in the military, you are responsible for that person's problems. So when the man comes to you, his wife and him is having problems, if the kid's not in the right school, you didn't have somebody to send them to. You took care of that problem. As a result, he convinced me that having counsel experience to go into counseling. And I can tell you, I went into that counseling and I worked in it for 18 years and I fell in love with it. They told me when I got out of the Army, slow down or die. I picked up speed and I'm here to put a stamp of approval on his program. Thank you.
Thank you, Luther.
President Victor, thank you so much for your thorough and wonderful presentation tonight and joining us at the Jefferson. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you spending your Wednesday night here with us at the Jefferson. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Good night.
Thank you.